Allow me to set the scene with some honesty. We never thought it would come to this. Never. Not in all the probabilistic models. Not in the war simulations run through 7 layers of quantum lattice work. Not even in the deranged rants of the Kshatric oracles. But desperation, like gravity, tends to pull you toward what you once considered beneath you. So we called them. Yes, humans. You have to understand, this was not a unanimous decision. Most of us in the High Council would have sooner hurled ourselves into a singularity than reach out to Earth's erratic mammalian spawn. But, well, singularities were no longer an option. Our escape routes were cut, our fleets reduced to drifting wreckage, and our final defense line at Akari Prime had just folded in on itself, literally, under some weapon we still don't understand. That's when the Council fell silent. Not contemplative silence, not respectful silence. No, the kind of silence that precedes the moment someone says something so staggeringly stupid it leaves the room stunned. They say, humans might still answer, someone muttered. I laughed. Out loud. A choking, breathless laugh that startled the ambassador from Velzar. Answer what? I said. A survey. The room didn't laugh with me. It was Darnak of Eshkol who repeated it with a straight face. They are not involved in this war. They are not part of any alliance. But they have always said, we respond when called. Respond? I sneered. With what? Teeth and claws? You must realize humans were the galaxy's little joke, a species that still clung to biological reproduction, planetary living, combustion engines. They once tried to colonize a methane world with plastic domes and duct tape. Duct tape. We've used more sophisticated materials to plug lava breaches. Their military wasn't even considered a threat, more of an oddity. Asymmetrical thinkers, we called them, as if that explained why they built warships shaped like inverted blades and called them carriers, even when they carried nothing but spite. But jokes fade when existence is on the line. We had no fleets, no allies, no hope. Only the rumor that humans still answered distress calls from the outer systems. So we sent it. A pulse beacon, frequency broken, routed through 3 dead constellations. We buried the message in desperation and 1,000 apologies. And then we waited. 10 standard hours later, a reply arrived. 3 words. Received. Stand by. I reread the message twice, then again. I even had a linguistic AI confirm the phrasing. It wasn't grand. It wasn't emotional. No promises. No threats. Just that. Received. Stand by. I remember feeling insulted. Now, I understand that was the last polite thing they ever said. We expected warships. No, scratch that. We expected rusted, barely functional, overcompensating war relics with names like Liberty Hammer or Vengeance Protocol. We pictured hulls patched with recycled alloys, maybe even visible weld marks. After all, humans loved theatrics. They named hurricanes. They named sniper rifles. One of their early orbital platforms was named Charles. Just Charles. So when the human delegation arrived, not in a fleet, not in a dreadnought, but in a diplomatic courier, I was caught mid-scoff. It was small, quiet, matte black, no visible weapons, no escort. It folded into our orbit silently, without the usual gravimetric echo. Our sensors didn't even register the jump path. One moment, there was vacuum. The next, humans, and not the kind we expected. They disembarked without ceremony, 3 of them, all in formal suits, no body armor, no energy shielding, no entourage of drones or theatrical translation devices. They carried briefcases for Stardust's sake. Envoys from Earth, one of them said, offering a hand in that ridiculous shaking ritual they seemed to love. Thank you for having us. Having you? You dare speak to the remnants of the Confederation like we're a dinner host? I was livid. Others were confused, and still, they smiled with those flat, fleshy faces that reveal nothing. It was eerie. There's a certain smoothness to human expression, deceptively calm. You can't quite tell if they're amused, disinterested, or calculating your demise. Their leader introduced herself as Morgan Hale, a diplomat with the Earth Strategic Response Assembly. The other 2, Reed Carson and Dr. Lex Navarro, spoke little. Morgan did the talking, and she did it well. Let's begin by understanding what you expect from us, she said, as if we were petitioners, not survivors. Darnak of Eshkol attempted to assert dominance, he always did, by questioning Earth's capability. He used the word insufficient 5 times in a sentence. Morgan just looked at him, quietly, patiently, not a flicker of irritation. When he finished his speech, she said, "Noted." Then she opened her briefcase and pulled out a slim black slate. It projected a single image, a before and after of the Polari Nebula. The before showed enemy forces, armadas, carriers, and 6 planetary bases. The after showed nothing. Dust and silence. According to the timestamp, the event had taken place 72 hours ago. "Wait," I said. "You've already engaged?" Morgan looked up. "No, that was a simulation. One of several options we've prepared based on your data." She tilted her head slightly. "Would you like us to proceed with that option?" Her tone didn't change. Her expression didn't flicker. But something ancient and cold passed through the chamber in that moment. Something that didn't belong to diplomats. Something that felt designed. Navarro added softly, "Of course, we'll need full operational transparency and a signed release of containment authority." That's when I realized they weren't asking to join a war. They were asking permission to end it. After the meeting adjourned, I lingered to observe their vessel. No markings, no power signatures. Yet it sat there, perfectly balanced in orbital gravity like it belonged to the fabric of space itself. It didn't hum. It waited. That night, I asked Morgan a question. One I hadn't meant to ask. "Why do you come dressed like that? Not even a shield layer?" She shrugged. "If we need armor to talk, we're already at war. You said this was diplomacy." It wasn't what she said. It was how she said it. I felt, for the first time, like the one underdressed. There's something you need to understand about humans. They rarely repeat themselves. When we hold galactic summits, we often restate our titles, clarify our ranks, re-establish our presence in the hierarchy. It's tradition, it's protocol, it's pride. Humans, especially those from Earth's Strategic Response Assembly, don't do that. Morgan Hale never raised her voice, never reminded us who she was, never demanded attention. She didn't need to. On the 3rd day of negotiations, Darnak made the mistake of pushing. It started like any other council interruption, loud, redundant, blustered through with inflated language and historical posturing. Darnak declared that if Earth wanted to stand beside true civilizations, they would need to disclose all military assets, ship capabilities, and deployable fleets for council review. Morgan didn't flinch. She just blinked, once. Dr. Navarro was the one who spoke first this time. "We don't disclose classified assets to unvetted parties." Darnak puffed up, a biological tick his species found intimidating. "Unvetted? You sit at our table, humans. Our table. Do not mistake desperation for dependence." I remember the pause. Morgan's eyes moved slowly, deliberately, to lock on Darnak. I braced for retaliation, but it didn't come in the form I expected. Instead, she reached into her briefcase again, pulled out a small data chip, and slid it forward. "This contains 2 files," she said, tone level as gravity. "One is a topological scan of your orbital defense stations at Eris 3. The other is a predictive model detailing how those systems would fail if hit by focused gravitic resonance fields at 37% power." Darnak stared at it as if she'd handed him a bomb. She continued, "We modeled that scenario 48 hours ago. The outcome was not favorable to you." The room went silent. Navarro added, almost helpfully, "We noticed the binding substructure on your upper ring lacks compensatory drift fields. It's delicate. Delicate." That word hit like a blade. And then Reed Carson spoke. His first words in the entire 3 days. "We weren't going to use it, but we thought you should know." He didn't raise his voice either. He didn't threaten. He simply stated a fact, like commenting on the weather. I studied their faces, calm, bored even, as if this was routine, as if threatening a planetary defense grid was just part of the Tuesday schedule. I realized then, humans had already considered how to fight us, not as enemies, but as a precaution. Darnak didn't respond. He simply excused himself and left the chamber. He didn't return the next day. The council fractured after that. Whispers spread through the halls like fire on dry moss. Some accused the humans of bluffing, others of arrogance. But none disputed that what they'd said was true. That night, I found myself in the observation deck where the humans often took their meals in eerie silence. Reed was there, sipping a steaming beverage with a calmness that made my skin crawl. I approached him. "You didn't need to humiliate him," I said. He looked up. "We didn't. He just realized we'd done the homework." There was no gloating, no venom, just a cold kind of certainty. I asked him what that drink was. He said it was coffee, something humans seem to revere almost religiously. Then he said something I'll never forget. "You all think we're unpredictable, but that's only because we don't explain ourselves. Doesn't mean we don't know exactly what we're doing." He sipped again. "And we always know what we're willing to do, even before you ask." You always remember the moment diplomacy ends. It wasn't a declaration. No formal breakdown. No ceremonial withdrawal of delegates. It was a hallway. A shadowed corridor between chambers. A guard. A sharp noise. And blood. Human blood. For the first time in our halls. Dr. Lex Navarro had stayed behind to review energy transition logs from a failed defense grid on Taleth 9. A minor task. He was not escorted. We thought it harmless. He never made it back to the delegation suite. The first report was vague. Incident. The second used a word I hadn't heard in standard cycles. Stabbed. Stabbed. Not vaporized. Not disintegrated. Not neural compulsed. Stabbed. With a blade. A physical one. A jagged sliver of local ore, sharpened crudely. They said the guard panicked. That he mistook the human's approach as aggressive. It was a lie. Everyone knew it. The attacker had shouted first. Something crude about monkey command. Then struck. By the time we arrived, Navarro was seated against a wall, one hand clutched to his side. His white shirt, they always wore white, was soaked through. The med techs had already applied field stasis. He was conscious. Reed knelt beside him, didn't speak, just looked. Navarro met his eyes and whispered something. I only caught the end. Doesn't change the plan. Morgan arrived minutes later, expression unreadable. She didn't shout. She didn't demand vengeance. She just stood there, looking at the blood on the floor. A small pool, slow and dark. Then she looked at me. I had no words, no defense. "We're invoking procedural withdrawal," she said. "Effective immediately." "No, please, Ambassador Hale," I tried. "We will discipline the assailant. We'll issue a formal apology." "We're not offended," she said simply. "We're done." I followed them as far as the landing corridor, babbling as a child might to a departing parent, begging them to stay. Explaining this wasn't who we were, that the guard had acted alone. Morgan stopped just before the boarding ramp. She turned to me and said something that still echoes. "You invited us. You asked what we would do. Now you're about to find out." Then they left. No threats, no ultimatums, just absence. We called Earth within the hour. No response. We sent apologies, legal statements, security recordings, testimonies, even a memorial plaque for Navarro. He was still alive, we were told, stable but unconscious. Still, Earth said nothing. That silence did something to us. Galactic species are not built for silence. We communicate through resonance, pheromones, neural fields. Even when quiet, we pulse. We emote. But the humans? They just stopped speaking. I attended an emergency session of the council. Some wanted to pursue the humans, to plead in person. Others, fools, suggested they had overestimated Earth's capabilities. But I saw Reed's eyes. I heard Navarro's final whisper. "Doesn't change the plan." That was the moment I realized. They had already decided what came next. Navarro's injury didn't alter the course. It triggered it. Silence, it turns out, is not the absence of sound. It's the presence of expectation and the dread that fills it. For the first 10 hours after the humans left, the council did what the council always does. They debated, they accused, they formed subcommittees, they discussed protocol violations, diplomatic ramifications, third-party mediations. They even suggested sending an apology delegation back to Earth. I didn't laugh. I didn't have the strength, but I wanted to. Because by hour 11, I realized we weren't waiting for Earth to respond. We were waiting to be noticed. At hour 22, someone finally asked the question we'd all been avoiding. What if they don't come back? I remember the way the chamber fell quiet after that. Not out of offense, but out of fear. Because in our desperation, we hadn't considered what silence might mean. Earth had simply disengaged. It wasn't disinterest. It wasn't anger. It was absence. And it felt like standing on a precipice and realizing gravity had been watching you the whole time. I began tracking communications traffic from Sol system. Not a single data packet. Not even a ping from Earth's outer relay buoys. Their gates were cold. Their listening satellites silent. Even their commercial broadcast streams, the ones full of bizarre human rituals and food competitions, had gone dark. All of it. Gone. At hour 36, I tried to contact Morgan Hale directly. The message was marked, received. No reply. At hour 41, I tried Reed Carson. Message bounced, no such node. At hour 49, I attempted a low-frequency ping to their courier ship. The signal never reflected. Not blocked, not jammed, swallowed. By hour 50, the council was unraveling. Some accused me, of mismanaging the delegation, as if I'd stabbed Navarro myself. Others suggested we initiate surrender protocols. Surrender to what? No one could say. By hour 61, our long-range scouts reported something troubling. Earth's trade routes were empty. Convoys had ceased. Their embassies across neutral systems had all quietly closed. No announcements, no closures, just vanishing. Someone said it aloud. They've gone dark. Someone else asked, is that a tactic? We didn't answer. By hour 74, panic began to bleed into the outer systems. Independent traders stopped running routes near Terran space. Civilian traffic across bordering sectors dropped to nearly zero. Mercenaries started leaving contracts, not for better pay, not for moral outrage. They were afraid. They didn't know what Earth was planning, but they knew something was coming, and no one wanted to be nearby when it did. At hour 86, a strange signal was intercepted near the ruins of Ikari Prime. Faint, fragmented, compressed into a narrowband pulse. One sentence. We don't negotiate with knives. No origin trace, no carrier wave, just one message. We played it 27 times. It was a male voice, calm, unhurried. It didn't say what they were going to do, just what they wouldn't. At hour 100, a station on the edge of the null line picked up a gravimetric ripple, an anomaly without a cause. It wasn't an explosion. It wasn't a fleet movement. It was a displacement. Something had moved. Something big, but the sensors didn't know what, or where it had gone. After that, even the bravest members of the council stopped speaking in full sentences, because by then we understood the silence. Earth hadn't gone dark. Earth had gone quiet, and things that go quiet tend to be hunting. Jarek Station was considered untouchable. It orbited the twin suns of Relgara like a crown of iron, 200 kilometers in diameter, housing a fleet of 37 warships, over 45,000 personnel, and enough firepower to glass a continent. Its defenses were legendary: overlapping shield arrays, point defense webs, quantum scramble beacons, and 3 layers of spatial distortion fields. No species had ever taken it. No pirate dared approach it. No rebel even dreamed of it. Which is precisely why humanity chose it. The initial report arrived as a silent flash. Not an explosion. Not a broadcast. A gap. Jarek's live status feed, once so constant it was used to calibrate nearby time satellites, blinked. For 3.1 seconds, the feed froze, then resumed. When it did, the station was gone. No debris, no distress signal, no escape pods, just gone. Naturally, we assumed it was a sensor failure. We sent recon drones. The drones never came back. We dispatched a rapid response frigate, veteran crew, top-tier scans, armed for stealth retrieval. 90 minutes after entering the coordinates, it emerged from subspace with one message carved into its hull. Not painted. Carved. Observed. Response logged. The crew was unconscious. Not dead. Unconscious. Every one of them. Their neural pathways had been chemically sedated through the ship's atmosphere. The captain had a recording device embedded in his hand. We played the recording. It showed Jarek Station from above. Pristine. Still. Then, fold. The stars around it bent, not with heat, not with gravity, with precision. A sphere of shimmering distortion enveloped the station. For exactly 1.7 seconds, a shape formed around it, like the pedals of some vast machine. Then, silence. When the light cleared, there was nothing left. Not fragments, not plasma trails, nothing. The humans had erased Jarek Station the way one erases a file. Cleanly, quietly. Someone on the council asked, voice cracking, "What kind of weapon was that?" The reply came not from a human, but from a Zelri technologist analyzing the footage. "It wasn't a weapon," he said. "It was an edit." That word echoed through the chamber like a death knell. The Confederation entered full alert within the hour. Fleets recalled. Border systems reinforced. 1,000 analysts combed every byte of the humans' known architecture, looking for a clue, anything, to explain how they had achieved it. They found nothing, not even a trace of energy bleed. Whatever the humans had used, it didn't leave a signature. It left a message, not in sound, not in light, but in absence. And as the galaxy scrambled, panicked, screamed in corridors and barricaded sectors, Earth remained quiet. No demands, no statement, no boasting. Because humans don't raise their voice when they're angry. They lower it. And the next time we heard from them, it wasn't through channels. It was through events. You know you've lost control of a room when no one raises their voice. The council, once a cacophony of ego and self-importance, now sat in mute disbelief. No posturing, no votes, just pale stares and dry mouths. I watched Darnak's former aide, who had once threatened to cut diplomatic ties over table placement, tremble as he reviewed the replay footage for the 5th time. It was always the same. Jarek Station, then light, then absence. No screams, no alarms, just subtraction. We debated the physics, of course. Our best minds proposed theories. Compressed antimatter bursts, phased gravitic dissonance, spatial rewriting. Some even suggested time loop reversals. All nonsense. The truth was worse. We didn't know. And worse still, we couldn't find where the attack came from. Someone asked, shakily, "Could it have been a localized black hole?" "No," came the reply. "Black holes don't leave signatures that clean." We tried hailing Earth again. Dozens of channels. Dozens of languages. No reply. Then, on the 3rd day, a package arrived. Not physically, but as a direct injection into our secure data net. No known entry point, no traceable route. A tight-wave quantum packet time-stamped, authenticated, and signed cryptographically. The file contained only one item, a short video. It began with silence. Then a human voice, calm, male, crisp English. "We understand you are confused." The video cut to a star chart. It highlighted 12 systems, each one bordering Earth-controlled space. "We are not issuing demands." Then images of those systems' primary military installations. Not public ones, classified ones. Every location, every vulnerability. "We are not initiating war." A still frame of Jarek Station, then, nothing. Just a white screen with the following words. "This is not war. This is response." The video ended. No threats, no declarations, just response. Someone in the room finally asked it, out loud, "What if that was the message?" No one replied, not because they disagreed, but because deep down, we knew it was true. The message wasn't the video. It wasn't the data. The message was Jarek. It was their way of showing us what would happen next. Not to warn us, to teach us. We learned quickly. Civilian traffic out of the central systems doubled, then tripled. Merchants began deleting records of human trade relationships. Local governments issued silent evacuation orders. No panic, just quiet departures. Entire outer colonies reclassified Earth space as Zone Black, a term once reserved for quarantine zones and uncontainable threats. I attended a session with the remaining senior members of the Council's Strategic Response Division. They were drawing up something they called de-escalation scenarios. One of them, a Varan tactician known for his ruthless precision, calmly suggested we offer Earth 3 systems in exchange for peace. "Which 3?" someone asked. He answered without hesitation. "Whichever ones they've already chosen." That was the new reality. We were no longer deciding terms. We were guessing Earth's intentions and hoping to survive them. It was only then that I remembered something Reed Carson had said during our time together. "You think we're dangerous because we get angry, but the real danger is when we don't." I hadn't understood it then. Now I did. It started with anomalies, minor ones, lost probes, glitched data streams, energy surges deep in the crust of outer colonies. We dismissed them, of course, as sensor drift, cosmic interference, sabotage maybe. We were wrong. At first, we believed Earth's power came from some hidden weapon, some ancient alien relic or breakthrough technology humanity had lucked into. That would have been comforting. Accidents can be studied, tech can be replicated, strategies can be countered, but what we found was intent. Earth had planned for this. Not just Jarek, not just the withdrawal, the entire chain of events, long before we contacted them. The first proof came from an independent group of archivists, fringe researchers obsessed with signal drift patterns. They compiled transmission anomalies dating back 50 standard years and found an unsettling pattern. Across neutral space, at regular intervals, tiny bursts of encoded packets had bounced off long-range stations. At first, they appeared random, but when plotted spatially, they formed a net, a vast, invisible lattice encompassing over a third of the galactic core. A surveillance grid. Earth had been listening, but not like we do, with satellites or drones. They'd used dust, microsatellites no larger than pollen grains, hidden in the magnetic flows of solar winds, attached to common shipping hulls, even embedded in water supplies. Thousands, tens of thousands, passive, undetectable, waiting. The Confederation issued denials, called it conspiracy, accused the archivists of manipulation. Until one such grain was recovered on Ves Prime during a deep-core mining operation. Its core, smaller than a blood cell, contained terabytes of data, location tracking, military routes, infrastructure diagrams, genetic scans. We weren't being monitored. We were being understood. And then came the second wave of realization. The humans hadn't built defense systems. They'd built decisions. They didn't protect cities. They moved them. Underground, underwater, even orbital dispersal structures disguised as weather stations. Their entire civilization wasn't static. It was modular. We thought Earth was vulnerable because it lived on one planet. We were wrong. Earth was just the origin point. The humans had outgrown it. Every trade station, every diplomatic post, every terraforming rig, they'd all been modified to house components of something larger. A distributed network, not a fleet, not a weapon, an organism, one we never saw, because we weren't supposed to. You see, we'd always thought of Earth as a location, a sphere of mud and sea and mammals, an unstable cradle of strange emotions and louder languages. But we were wrong. Earth isn't a place. It's a philosophy, a collective decision, to look weak until it's time not to be, to smile while setting the foundation beneath your feet on fire, to accept ridicule, mockery, disrespect, because none of that matters when you've already mapped the exit wound of your enemy. I remember showing the findings to the council, no shouting this time, just breathless disbelief. And for the first time in my life, I heard something truly chilling, a whisper from a military strategist. He wasn't looking at the data anymore. He was looking out the window, and he said, "If they've already planned for this, then what we're living through isn't resistance." He turned toward me. "It's just the script." There is a term in Terran military theory called the unthinkable doctrine. I found it buried in an old human file archive, decrypted through 6 layers of dead language. It wasn't in a war manual. It wasn't even in a military database. It was published in a journal, open to civilians. Humans published their darkest truth, and no one paid attention. The doctrine reads as follows: if diplomacy fails and provocation occurs without just cause, Earth shall not engage in war. It shall initiate calculated removal. There will be no occupation, no reclamation, no negotiation, only removal. Because peace is our first language, but annihilation is our second, and we speak both fluently. That is not a threat. That is not a policy. That is a decision tree. We thought humans were unpredictable because they didn't posture. They didn't parade their fleet counts or shout over council tables. But the truth is worse. They were predictable, horrifyingly so. We just refused to believe it. In the 72 hours following the uncovering of the doctrine, 5 border systems voluntarily severed ties with the Confederation and attempted to send envoys to Earth. None were received. 2 of them, Caltris and Numa 4, went silent within the day. No explosions, no distress beacons, only silence. The system's trade satellites stopped transmitting. Their gravity wells flattened. Their sunward stations went into freefall, not destroyed, just ignored out of existence. I watched the Council fracture in real time. Entire member species initiated emergency withdrawals. Ambassadors collapsed in their chairs. One even detonated his own Cortex chip out of sheer panic. I wasn't surprised. We had all laughed at Earth's early broadcasts, at their primitive dramas, their obsession with old wars and apocalypse scenarios. We thought it was fiction. It wasn't. It was training, simulated emotional exposure, collective crisis rehearsal. They had been preparing for extinction since before they left their moon. We prepared for victory. They prepared for failure. And that's why they're still standing. A few voices in the council whispered of retaliation. "Strike Earth before they strike again," they said. But how? We didn't know where Earth was anymore. Their planet remained, but the mind of Earth had moved, distributed itself, hidden itself, became something else, not a capital, not a species, an intention. The last decision the council made was a coward's dream, to surrender, to send a delegation with apologies and reparations and pleas for mercy. We broadcasted across known channels, 3 times. No answer. But on the 4th day, something appeared. Not a fleet. A mirror. A vast, polished satellite array positioned precisely over the council chamber's orbit. It showed us, ourselves, all our military positions, every ship, every base, highlighted in red. Then, one by one, systems blinked off the display, not with explosions, with crossed-out lines, silently, slowly. It was a countdown, and we didn't know how to stop it. We had never understood the humans, and now we were being written out of the equation. The last meeting of the High Council was held in a bunker beneath the capital city of Varex. Not a war chamber, not a crisis center, a bunker. By then, most of the outer Confederation systems had gone dark. Not because of war, but because they had been excised, strategically, surgically, not destroyed, removed. We didn't even know how. Entire stations appeared operational one day, then were found drifting the next, depowered, empty, like the crew had simply vanished mid-task. Ships untouched, food half-eaten, airlocks sealed, gone. Someone called it the quiet culling. No one objected to the term. In that last session, I sat at the edge of the oval table, watching species that once commanded legions now struggle to hold their own breath steady. "We must ask again," someone said. "We must try once more to reach them." "We've already tried," I replied, hoarse. "They're not rejecting us. They've already decided." "Then perhaps we offer something. A territory. A concession." "They don't want territory," I said. "They want completion." A silence followed. Not stunned silence. Defeated. I had reviewed the mirror satellite again that morning. It had updated. Half the map was now red, the other half, gray, pending, no signals, no transmissions, just the silent reshaping of power. But it wasn't until we tried to evacuate the council that we discovered what was really happening. Our planetary subspace gate array failed, all at once, not destroyed, isolated. Every exit point collapsed into recursive error loops. Our outbound transmissions bounced. That's when we realized we hadn't been blockaded. We had been quarantined, not to contain us, to observe us. And then, precisely at hour 300 post-Jarek, Earth spoke. No holograms, no diplomat faces, No dramatic voices, just a pulsing data stream. Plain text. Collapse protocol initiated. The words appeared on every screen, every ship, every console across the remaining Confederation. No explanation, no demands. Just 2 more lines. You escalated, you struck, you lied. We respond in kind. Moments later, entire planetary cores began to destabilize, not to explode, but to unfold. Seismic data showed it clearly. Earth had somehow weaponized gravity itself, not with bombs, but with resonant collapse. They struck fabric, not structures. One moment, a city stood. The next, it curved inward. Not even light escaped. I watched in real time as the skies of Varex turned black, not from smoke, but from event horizon distortion blooming like a flower across the upper atmosphere. That's when I finally understood. This wasn't war. This was judgment. The collapse protocol wasn't destruction. It was redaction. Earth wasn't targeting us physically. They were removing us from the record, not wiping us out, erasing us, like a failed variable in a solved equation. I write this as the skies dim above me, not because the sun is gone, but because the sky itself is folding. The council world of Varex is slowing. I can feel it. The seconds stretch. My breath seems to drag across time like it's caught in molasses. It's not fear, it's distortion. The collapse protocol has reached us, but not with heat, not with fire, with logic. I never imagined that reality could be folded politely. It began 36 minutes ago. A shimmering band of light across the upper atmosphere. Then a brief, beautiful stillness, as though the planet were inhaling its last breath. And then, they spoke. Not across channels, not on frequencies. Everywhere. The words appeared on walls, on screens, in thought echoes and neural implants, as if reality itself had been rewritten to carry the message. It read, "This was not war. This was judgment." And then it changed. You initiated violence under false pretenses. You harmed under the guise of order. You asked for help, then struck the hand that answered. We were called, so we responded. The language shifted as it was read. Every species saw the message in their own script, their own symbols, their own guilt. There is no vengeance here, only removal of threat. I felt it in my bones. This was not a declaration. It was a verdict. There would be no trial, no plea, no appeal, because Earth had already listened, already calculated, already chosen. The world around me begins to lose angles. Buildings ripple like fabric. The ground bends not downward, but inward, like space itself is folding us gently into irrelevance. I look to the skies expecting ships. There are none, because ships are for wars. This is not war. This is closure. I think back to Reed Carson, his quiet words over coffee, his eyes like twin singularities of calm resolve. He had warned me, hadn't he? You all think we're unpredictable, but that's only because we don't explain ourselves. And Morgan Hale, still and cold, had told me, you invited us. We did. And now I understand the true meaning of those words. Humanity doesn't rage when wronged. It removes, not because it enjoys it, but because it understands that some wounds do not require bandages. They require sterilization. We weren't seen as enemies. We were seen as infection. And Earth is the cure. The final line of the message pulses now, embedded across every surviving system, burning into history like a scar across time. We do not seek peace. We preserve it. And then the message vanishes, leaving only light, and the sound of silence folding in on itself. I live now on a neutral moon in the outer edge of an unclaimed system. There are few of us left. The stars are quieter now. Trade has slowed. Signals flicker through fractured routes, cautious and sparse. The Confederation is gone, not defeated but absent, like a memory no longer referenced. I don't know if others survived. Perhaps on the deep arcs, or the scattered colonies Earth spared. Perhaps not. But I survived. And because I did, I must speak. I was there when Earth spoke. I remember thinking, before it all, that humanity was backwards, that they were a sideshow, a species of contradictions and chaos, We had charts after all, rankings, threat models, technological progressions. Humanity barely registered as advanced, primitive in places, emotionally unstable, illogical. And yet, when the galaxy cracked, it was not under the heel of the strongest. It was under the hand of the most patient. Earth could have struck back immediately, could have screamed across the void, could have shown rage. Instead, it waited, planned, measured, then moved with the weight of inevitability. The strangest thing about the collapse protocol wasn't the precision or the silence, it was the calm. The humans removed systems the way surgeons excise rot, not with cruelty, but with purpose. Even now the phrase echoes, "This was not war, this was judgment." I believed them. There were no trophies, no territory claimed, no propaganda. After the Council world vanished, Earth spoke only once more. It was not a warning. It was not a threat. It was a clarification. One final transmission, brief and quiet. We do not crave power. We require peace. Peace requires consequences. You created one. We became the other. After that, nothing. Earth has not answered calls since. No embassies reopened, no ships sighted. But every now and then a drifting buoy is found. Dark, silent, perfectly intact. And when scanned, each contains the same inscription. We are still listening. And so we whisper now. We whisper about Earth. Never to it. Merchants warn their apprentices not to speak of old wars near Terran space. Smugglers erase routes that cross Sol's distant shadow. Pirates vanish when they strike too close to those dead zones. No one claims to know where Earth's fleets are, because Earth no longer needs fleets. Their presence is a pressure on space itself, a memory too heavy to ignore. You see, it wasn't humanity's weapons we feared. It was their resolve, that they could endure mockery, accept insults, tolerate injuries, and then, with perfect stillness, erase everything that asked for fire. They did not act out of hatred. They acted because we gave them no other choice. And when they finished, they didn't ask for thanks. They left. I don't know if they'll ever return, but if they do, I pray they never speak again. Because the last time Earth spoke, the galaxy was never the same.